Hello and welcome to another Cork Taylor Wine Podcast. I'm excited. I am in the house of Ledson. I'm here with Steve Ledson, the man. All I want to talk about, and then we can finish the podcast. It'll be a quick one. You fell 30 feet into a creek. You floated a quarter mile down the creek, and your dad made you walk home.
That's right. My dad was a very lovable man, but he was a tough boy. He brought you up, You didn't complain hurt unless you were hurt. I was hurt that day.
Didn't you miss part of kindergarten?
I did. That happened on Christmas vacation, and I didn't go back. I never went to kindergarten again. And I spent over a month in the hospital laying still because at that time they didn't have the same technology, and I had this fractured skull, and it looked like a broken egg. And so what they did is they just kept me totally still for, I think it was 6 weeks in the hospital. God. Yeah.
Wow. Beautiful property, to say the least.
Thank you.
You've done okay for yourself.
Well, thank you.
So driving up here, I told you I met your controller before this, and a very nice gentleman. We had a nice little chat. I feel like I'm at Falcon Crest.
Yeah, do you remember watching that, huh?
I do.
Yeah.
Yes, I remember that. And it's just, your website's very thorough. It's a great story, to say the least. What made you decide this castle, or build this castle?
Well, it's interesting. I guess that some people call me a dreamer.
I think you're a realist too.
Well, possibly, yeah. When I built this castle, I'd never been to Europe. My grandfather, Barker Boodle Ledson, was from Europe. He came over here as an engineer in the turn of the century. And I've always felt like he was talking to me all the time. He always gave me direction. And I came over here because a good friend of mine and a business associate wanted to build a spec house here. So I came over and took a look at the property, and I said, yeah, I'll build a spec house with you. So I started designing a building. It wasn't this one. And I wasn't into it a week. And he said, hey, Steve, can you buy me out? And I go, well, Dave, what's going on? We just started this. He goes, my wife wants me to move to Lake County and slow down, and my health isn't that good. Her health's not good. I said, yeah, I just bought into it. So I wrote him a check, and he was gone.
You know what I found out in business, and I've found this out recently. If you need to know if it's truly going to happen or they're a good partner, talk to their wife or their significant other.
That is very true.
Isn't that the truth?
Oh, I could give you hundreds of stories about how the wife is determined what the husband's going to do.
Yeah, and that's okay. But it's like I'm trying to hire a part-time delivery driver, and I've had 3 people say, "Well, I've got to talk to my wife." I'm like, wouldn't you talk to your wife before you apply for the job, or before you're going to do something? That's, to me, is just that's just crazy.
You can't believe how much people depend on their wives,
Yeah. And vice versa, wives on their husbands, stuff like that. Yeah, it's definitely. Your wife works in this operation too.
Oh yeah. My wife and I've been together for 21 years, and she started here, just doing bookkeeping, and now she's runs all the accounting department and a lot of other stuff. Yeah, she's a huge.
You can't hide anything now.
You can't hide anything.
No, you can't.
She can. She can hide stuff from me.
Yeah, but you can't, right?
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
So what kind of provoked you to? So 1997 was your first inaugural vintage, a 1994 Merlot. I guess so. You built this property. Did you ever think, you look back now? Did you ever think this was going to be what it was or what it is now 20, 30 years ago?
What's interesting is that I just lived one road away. We lived on Pythian Road, which is just right up the street here. That's where I was raised. And a good friend of mine used to live here with his family, and he had a fast car, and I used to come over and hang out. And I never thought that I would ever even own the property, I never thought that. They called him Sparky, was his name.
And he owned a fast car. That's not good.
Exactly. Yeah, he was a piece of work. But anyway, so when I had the opportunity to look at this property, it was intriguing to me because I'd been here all my life, and in fact, my family came here in 1862. But when I stood on this property and I looked across the highway, which is now Annandale State Park, that was my grandfather's ranch.
Wow.
He owned most of that Oakmont and Annandale State Park, and I never met my grandfather, but I've always had this connection with him, like a spiritual connection with him. And I just looked across at his property, and I just felt like, you know what? There's something about this. I'm not sure what this is. And when then Dave backed out of the deal, it's like my grandfather was designing this home in my head. I would be dreaming about it at night, and I'd wake up and I'd make scratch notes because I do all my own design and stuff. And pretty soon, what I do is, it was so interesting that I took the plan I was drawing and I taped it on the ceiling above my bed. My wife thought it was crazy, right?
No, it is crazy.
But then I end up designing this building from those dreams and stuff, and all my grandfather talking to me, and he'd been to Europe. I'd never been to Europe. And so I designed it to be my own home.
Yeah.
But, when we were building this castle, there was thousands of people that would stop and think it was a winery.
Yeah.
They say, oh, when's the winery going to open? And I said, oh, it's not going to be a winery. I'm disappointed to tell you. I said, it's my home. And they'd be disappointed, right? So we were in the process of putting all the brick on and the slate roof and everything. My superintendent says to me one day, he says, I got a proposition for you. I said, what's that, Bob? He says, I want to work for you for nothing. I said,
is he still looking for employment?
Exactly.
Does he like to drive in Ohio?
I said, well, that sounds fine to me, but I don't understand how you're going to live. He says, I just want a piece of the sales of the wine. I said, well, Bob, we're growing grapes, but, our family quit making wine a few years back. And I said, we're selling grapes, but we're not going to make wine. He goes, well, that's a mistake you're making. I said, what do you mean? He says, Steve, do you know how many hundreds, thousands of people that come here every day? I get here in the morning, people climb over the chain link fence, and they're on the scaffolding looking at up to 2- and 3-story windows. He goes, you're a fool if you don't do that. And I thought, wow. Maybe
he called you out. He called you. Now he challenged. He called you a fool.
He did.
Yeah.
And so I got thinking about that. So I went and applied to the planning commission. They all voted against me.
Oh, shocker, right?
No, they said, we're not going to have that.
Are you surprised? I mean, you've been in the construction business and development for years. Are you really surprised that the planning? I mean, let's be honest. And they're not going to be listening to this. Let's be honest too.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I appealed it. I went to the Board of Supervisors where I could sit down and talk to people and explain what I was doing and how that the sales tax alone for this building, what it would do for Sonoma County, and I got it approved. But it took us, that was in 1997, and we opened a double wide trailer right after that. And we didn't open the building here till July 13th of 1999 because it was such a retrofit with steel MoMA beams and extra concrete and stuff. But it was just a dream. It just started as a dream, and it's just developed into probably one of the greatest parts of my life, and not just the building or not just the wines, but the employees and people and friends I've made through the winery. I mean, I don't know how my life, it couldn't be as good without this.
Yeah.
If I'd have kept it as my home, I'd have been living this by myself. I wouldn't have met thousands of people.
Right.
There's like 15,000 people in our wine club now. There's, 70-some thousand people in our database that we're marketing all the time, and so many different employees. Like,
I walked in here and he's like, I would like to sign you up for the wine club.
There you go.
And the email, I kept asking for all these different emails. It was really strange. I'm like, he's good. No, I'm just kidding.
The guy that you were talking to, the controller, he's been here 41 years.
Well, the gentleman even
years.
before him too.
Yeah.
When he set it up. I mean, it's amazing. I'm like, 41. I said, are you Ledson? He's like, no. And I'm like, you've been here long? He's like, about 41 years. I'm like, you're pretty much a Ledson.
Exactly. Yeah.
Well, that says something too.
It does. And we're just one big family. And over the years, they've developed a thing they tell me all the time. They say, ever since I went to work for you, I've never worked a day in my life.
Well, maybe you should stop paying them every 2 weeks.
Yeah, that might change their perception.
Well, no, just tell them it's employee appreciation every 2 weeks.
Yeah.
That's amazing. It's amazing. Can we try something while we talk a little bit?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, let's.
You have had the wines before, I hope.
Oh yeah, I've been making wine since I was a little boy.
There you go.
So we own ranches. Let me get back over there.
Yeah, no worries. Perfect. Thank you. White Zinfandel.
Yeah. Chardonnay, Reserve Anderson Valley, Reserve Chardonnay. It's on we have a 6,000 acre ranch up in Anderson Valley, running cattle on it, and we got about 15 acres of grapes, and it's got Chardonnay and Pinot Noir on it. I love this wine. This is my favorite Chardonnay. It's all barrel fermented. We cut the crop back to a couple of clusters per shoot. It's really a well-balanced canopy. The root system in relationship to the size of the trunk, to all the canes, everything is in perfect balance. Fermented in French oak at a cool temperature. So it takes, a good 30 days probably to get it 100% dry. Mm-hmm. A lot of texture, the mouthfeel there to it. Still a lot of upfront fruit.
Very pleasant nose. Reminds me of American apple pie.
Yeah, I get that.
Mm-hmm. Get a little cinnamon, a little baked spice. It's real pretty. So how many different wines do you guys make?
Oh, God. At one time I was making over 80, but I think we're probably down to about
80?
I don't know.
You're
what
crazy.
It is.
I don't know anybody that's made over 25 in a year, and you make 80.
Well, now we're down to probably 70.
Oh.
But, I just love developing something. I develop this building,
right.
developing a wine. But like this wine right here, we don't make but about probably 250 cases of this.
Okay.
But we make several different Chardonnays. But I just like to experiment. No matter what I'm doing, I always want to try to make it better. Mm-hmm. And it's hard to make the quality of wines that we're making in too big of batches. So, the process that we go through of barrel selection, tasting every 30 days, pulling barrels out, readjusting barrels, temperature controls, picking times, pH, acid, bricks. There's just so many little pieces that over the years that since I was a child that I've learned from my family and learned from new people that I've worked around, that to really refine the wine down. So if you're only making 5 wines, the time frame is not, it's not the same. Mm-hmm. And I've been criticized by a lot of people about, why do you make so damn many wines?
Yeah.
I can't stop
But you sell them, right?
Oh, yeah. They're all sold.
But that's not a problem then. If you're selling them, great. If you're not selling them, then you have an issue.
One of the things I've always said, I think everybody's equal in this world, and I've always said I'm going to make a wine for everybody's palate and everybody's pocketbook. So when you come here, if you want to buy a wine that's $18, I have it for you. I even have wines at $12. If you want to buy a wine that's $250, I have a wine for you. So I want to make everybody in my life feel good, not just my employees, not just my family, but every customer.
I feel pretty good right now.
Well, good. Wait till we're done. You'll really feel good.
So, what case production do you feel, in your personal opinion, the quality gets maybe tampered a little bit?
That's a good question. There's a lot of things that play into that. The first thing is that my dad used to say, you can't make a silk purse out of a sow's ear. So, in other words, if I don't farm these grapes to the best of the best ability, my chances of making a wine that's 95 to 100 points is slim. So my biggest challenge is making sure the farming is correct. And I buy a little bit of grapes from other people, and that's the biggest challenge, getting them to do what I know needs to be done. And I'll work with a guy a couple of years, but if I can't get him to pay attention to what I'm asking him to do, I have to move on. So that's more of a control of the quality than even the winemaking. Now, when you get into the winemaking side of it, it's not just a total amount of wine that you're making, but it also has to do with the size of the tank, the certain lot of the vineyard, all the right barrels, the time in barrel, the temperatures. There's all these fine little things. And so if you get a bigger amount of wine, you have a bigger vessel, a bigger tank. So it's harder to keep the temperatures controlled. Everything gets tougher. It's not as good as a smaller vessel that I can control temperature really well, because the inside temperature of a wine compared to the outside of the jacket is going to be different. Mm-hmm. So temperature is so critical in wine. You can burn off the fruit. You can lose complexity, gain or lose mouthfeel. So anytime you get too big, you just make that tougher all the time. So we only make, I think right now we're making about 20,000 cases. We used to make around 30,000, but when the fires hit and COVID-19, we lost some vineyards and stuff. And
You can't say that 5-letter word on this podcast. COVID.
okay, good. We won't bring it up again.
There you go. That's delicious, though. So you make 70 wines. What is your highest producing wine? What is your lowest producing wine? Case count.
Block 14 Cabernet is our lowest. I think we make about 50 cases.
Oh, wow.
$225 a bottle, but man, it's just velvet. I
Yeah.
mean, you open that bottle and it's gone. You go,
Yeah.
what happened to that?
Yeah.
You know, it's just, oh boy. Right from the nose all the way to the finish of the palate, it's just, everything is just perfect.
Where's that from?
It's from our ranch called Mountain Terraces.
Okay.
It's up on top of Cave Dale, about 3,000 feet elevation at the top.
Wow.
So it's phenomenal.
Okay.
And then probably the biggest one we make would probably be our Sauvignon Blanc. We'd make somewhere between 1,000 cases, and we have made up to 3,000.
Wow.
You know, so that's our biggest.
Wow. That's pretty impressive. I think what's amazing to me is you don't like wine distributors, and I'm personally offended.
You know,
that is. I'm trying to wrap my brain when I was driving here. I can't think of any other winery that is 100% either tasting room, wine club, direct to consumer. Do you even know one?
No, I don't. You know, I had some history with that. In the very beginning, we had some distributors. We had one in Texas, and I'll keep the names out.
Yeah,
of
that's
it,
fine.
But they took a big order, you know,
Yep.
5,000 cases.
Yeah, I know what you're
going
to say.
You probably do.
Yeah. Yeah.
After the first order, I wasn't getting any more orders for them.
Yeah. Did you
And
get paid on time?
I did actually.
Well, that's surprising because what usually happens, they take a big order. Hey, I need 30 more days. Hey, I need 30. They stretch it out.
Start stretching it.
Yeah.
So I thought, you know, why are you not ordering? So I got on an airplane and flew down there. And I had a list of all the places they're putting. So I went in these places and there was no wine in there. And I asked one guy, I forget the name, it was not a Bevmore, it was a high-end liquor store. And I said, so hey, can I get a bottle of Ledson Merlot? And he says, oh man, if you know where to get it, I'd like to have one myself. I go, excuse me? He said, we had it in here, but when we ordered our next order, they didn't have any. So I thought, what the heck? So I went next place, same thing. I go, what's going on here? So I went over to the distributor's place and I went around to the back door and the back door of the warehouse, and it was full of wine. So I went around to the front and the guys, oh, Steve, you know, and I said, what's going on? He goes, what are you talking about? I said, I'm going around to the liquor stores, they don't have the wine, it's full. What are you doing? Oh man, come inside, I'm really sorry. I go, what's the matter? He says, well, a certain big winery that they buy wine from told them that if they don't keep it, I forget the amount of cases, some huge amount of cases every month, they're going to pull their brand from them. He says, so if we were to lose that winery, that brand, we'd be out of business.
Yeah.
So I'm being forced to not put your wine there to move the other one. I said, let's take it. Do you have a current inventory? And he says, yeah. I said, let's take a look at it. And I said, I'm going to write you a check. I'm going to ship the wine back. I go, I'm done. I said, I can't be in a business that I can't control or run my own business. It just doesn't work for me. That was the end of it right there. So I got a early lesson in life.
Yeah. And I think not every distributor is like that, but honestly, if you can sell everything out of here, why wouldn't you? I mean, let's be honest. I mean, distributors do serve a purpose. They do help promote brands if you're with the right distributor.
Right.
And unfortunately, some of these bigger wineries, like the story in Texas, that does happen, and it happens, you know, more often than not. But you know, that's unfortunate. It's bad that that happened like that, and you know, but hey, seems like you're doing okay without them.
And in life, everything happens for a reason, you know. And being direct like this, I meet the people. My staff meets the people. It's not just buying the product. It's the experience you get, the hospitality.
Buying the dream. The Ledson dream, yeah.
Exactly. And that's what is so much fun. When people that work here, they're excited to get to work because they're meeting new people and same people and every day and pouring phenomenal wines and laughing and having a good time and expanding their people they know in the world. if I was distributing a lot of wine, that would shrink, right? And it's not as fun.
No, it's not.
So-
It's not. What can we try red? Let's try some red. I'm gonna tell you a story while you pour.
Okay, sounds
So, how I found out about Ledson. So, good friends of ours, literally, I can see their backyard right now from because of the snow and everything. That's the Chardonnay. Yeah, thank you. The snow and the cold weather because we have in Ohio. It's frigid. They brought this wine out, and it was. They bought a row or bought a certain amount of cases from this winery called Ledson, and it was Don Johnson Red Blend. So they gave me a bottle. I'm like, oh, okay, I've never really heard of Ledson. I'll be honest with you, and I don't really go to wine tastings. I mean, I'm in the industry. I've got this podcast, so I had the wine. I'm like, this is pretty good. So I asked them about the concept. I'm like, this is freaking brilliant. What you did. I mean, I don't know how many cases they got, and they got this sign too, and it's in their wine cellar and what have you. And I'm like, that's impressive.
Yeah, that's a really cool program. That's something really close to my heart, to be honest with you. It's called Three Brothers. It's
right, exactly.
It's named from my dad and his two brothers, Winslow and Whitby. They farmed this valley for years as kids. They worked on the Cundy Ranch when Big Boy Cundy ran it and everything. And I wanted to have something special for them. And then I wanted to have something special for my top customers. So what we do, and if you go outside and look, you'll see almost every row has a person's name on it.
Yeah, I put my name on there somewhere.
There you go.
Yeah, I ain't paying for it, though. Squatter rights. I've been here for longer than 35 minutes.
There you go. This is our Sonoma Valley Ancient Vines Inn. These vines were originally planted in 1870.
Yeah, I usually don't drink anything, earlier than 1869, but I'll pass on this
There
one.
you go. Joe DiGraggio.
The nose. Holy cow.
I think we just got a score on this wine of like 97, 98 points.
Wow. Wow. Just coat your mouth.
All 100%. 100% no. 100% French oak.
Do you have any preference on oak, or does it really?
We use a mix of oak. What we do, every 30 days, we're checking each barrel and we're making sure that it doesn't get over oaked, or making sure the oak is integrated into the wine perfectly. And if we find one that's off, we pull it out, go to a different barrel. Mm-hmm. And then when we get down to our blend and our reserves, we go through and hand select certain barrels, but we track this. So over time, we can refine the barrel we use and refine the percentage of that barrel that's used in a certain blend. So it's constantly growing and constantly learning to make sure we have that right touch of oak.
Mm-hmm. You don't check it every 30 days, let's be honest.
We do.
I believe you.
We do. Every 30 days, those barrels are down, and my associate winemaker and assistant winemaker and I taste through them.
Yeah.
Every 30 days.
That's crazy.
I spend a lot of time in the cellar.
That's crazy. So it's an interesting story how you got your first wine club members, Jan and Dave Holcomb.
Yeah. That's
I mean, what you were telling me earlier about how people are driving in and stuff like that. Who was that? Can't remember. Who was the person that met them? And you said just, they were talking about a wine club, and you're like, well, start one.
So that was back in 1997. We had a double wide trailer out here, and back in those days, I had this big box cell phone that sat on the floor of my truck. Right? Remember those big phones? Right?
Oh, they're huge with the huge antenna.
Yeah, exactly. And I had my son Mike at that time was in the taste room in the trailer. We just got our approval, right? We just got our approval. So my phone rings. I answer it. I go, hello, and he goes, "Hey, Dad, it's Mike." I go, "What's going on?" He goes, "Hey, I've got some people in here. They're buying a bunch of wine from us, and they're asking about joining a wine club. Do we have a wine club?" and I said, "Well, we do now." He goes, "Well, what do I do?" I said, "Take a piece of paper and get all their contact information. When I get back, we'll make out a new wine club for them. It'll be our first one." And they're still wine club members today. Still wine club. And they bought from us probably $250,000 or maybe $350,000 of wine from us over the years.
Wow. Maybe I need to go to their house.
They love to drink and they love to entertain people. So they've probably brought us 350 club members over the years as well. He's in the oil well business. He's like a engineer, and he works for these big companies, so he makes really good money, and he's a very kind person and shares his wealth and everything. He's a great guy.
But it's you know what I think helps with the wine club and purchasing from you is you can't just go get it at a shelf. And people want what they can't have, right? Mm-hmm. And I find if one person's part of the wine club and it's a friend of theirs, they don't want to be left out. You probably didn't think about this all, did you? I'm just kidding. I mean, it's brilliant. I mean, I'm going to make a wine and start a wine club. You want to join? $8 a month.
Yeah. I mean,
Crazy.
People, so I've heard this story so many times. People set a bottle of Ledson wine down on the table and they're having friends over, right? They go, what's that? I've never heard of that before. They smile. Oh, I got a special treat for you. Mm-hmm. They taste it. They go, wow, that's phenomenal. Next time I go to the store, I'm going to get a bottle of that. And they go, I don't think so. What do you mean? Can't buy that in the store. I can get you some of that. I mean, I'm in their wine club. It's all limited amounts of production. And, oh, yeah, if you could, my wife and I are talking about going out to wine country. Can you get me a tasting there? And that's what happens. Yeah.
Was there ever a time where you're like, man, I don't know about this wine club. We need to focus maybe on other avenues, maybe even, expand into distribution again or dabble your feet. Was there ever a time or no?
Not really. Knock on wood. The wine club has been really good to us. It's at least 55 to 60% of our revenue, and growing. So, and it's the personal touch that you have with people. Just amazing. And I learned a long time ago. I mean, I think our wines are phenomenal, but I'll tell you, people don't necessarily just buy product. Mm-hmm. People buy people. People could go into a tasting room and taste a phenomenal wine, but the man behind the bar doesn't have a personality. He doesn't know the wines, and he's not really friendly and kind. Mm-hmm. They might buy a bottle or two, but you go across the street, and the wines are good, but they're not anywhere like those wines. But the person is so respectful. He knows his wines. He knows everything about them. He knows how to make them feel good. And they go out or they buy a couple of cases of wine.
I feel like I'm in Napa right now. I'm going to get thrown out, aren't I?
No, you see what I'm saying? I mean, people, if you think about it, everybody works hard. We all work hard.
Right.
But you only take so much time off.
I think you got to be careful with that comment.
Yeah.
But working
I can't
hard.
argue with that. Oh. But
you know what? It's true. And it's funny. I had this conversation with, I don't know if it was a friend or even my wife or someone like that. I actually do talk to my wife, or she at least talks to me. I shouldn't say I talk to her. It's amazing as I've gone on this journey. You asked me about the wine podcast and stuff like that. And I did it. I've done it now for 2 years, and I'm being more consistent every week and stuff like that. Because in everything you do, you have to be consistent, right? I mean, it's whether, working out,
whatever,
going to church, whatever it is, family, whatever it is. I find the more people I've met, there's certain wines, and I look at my wine cellar. I was able, through interviewing them and stuff like that, and just building friendships, been able to get some of this stuff, and it's amazing how much. If someone says, "Hey, do you like this wine or that wine?" and I'm like, it's Ledson and something else, let's say, it's like, man, Ledson, and I think it's because I've gotten to know the people. I respect them as human beings. I respect them in their wines, and I think that is, as a distributor too, working with these wineries and seeing what they do and meeting their families. It's just, why wouldn't you support them, right?
Yeah, exactly.
People buy, in the distribution game, people buy wine from people because they like them and they want them to succeed or make money.
Exactly.
So you've obviously done something right.
I'm only as good as the people I surround myself with, Luke, and I've got some great people. Mm-hmm. So
it's amazing. So how many family members are in the business? Because it seems like there's more. There was a quote I saw on the internet on your website. There might be more family members than wines you guys make.
Yeah. Well, over the years, we've had a lot of family members work here. The Ledsons are in Canada, they're in New Zealand, they're in the United States.
They're in Canada?
Yeah.
Where? I'm Canadian.
Up in Ontario.
Well, so am I. Where?
Well, they own a trucking company up there and a bus lines. They own
nice.
the Ledson bus lines in Toronto for a long time.
Nice.
And then they had Cavalier Trucking for a long time.
Oh, wow.
And they have racehorses. They've done well with racehorses.
Yeah.
So we're all really tight-knit family. So I've had the family, kids and cousins from Canada coming down to work in the summertime, And
They talk funny. We talk funny up there, huh?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Oh, they're fun people. Hard to keep up to, I want to tell you.
Well, yeah, hey, that too. That's amazing. And it's an amazing, just reading the kind of history of your family and the three brothers and just, the ice company and just, different stuff like that. It's amazing how you need to make a wine. And I said this to Robert Bialy in Napa. Aldo's hustle, because his dad was a hustler. You need like a wine, a red blend called The Hustle. Because I think the Ledson family are hustlers in a good way. I'm not saying anything shady. Like they're workers and they're hustlers.
They're hard workers.
So I expect at least a case of wine if you make The Hustle. And please make it a red blend, not a white blend.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
I mean, think about it. It's kind of like an homage of your family. I mean, every person, it seemed like the three brothers was really interesting, and they all hustled. And they all figured it out.
I like that. I'm going to do that.
Oh, I just trademarked it with the United States Patent and Government Association.
Did you?
No. Full of shit. So that was the Zin. What else we got? Let's try something, and then we'll switch to asking you some more in-depth personal questions. This place is beautiful. I mean, the woodwork, the dog's quiet too. Pistol's quiet. What is it? So we know what your favorite red is, or white is. What's your favorite red?
I have two.
Okay.
I mean, I like all wines.
Yeah. Yeah.
But for years I've been a Zin fan. Growing up as a kid around here, there was a lot of Italians around here, and they mainly had Zin planted. And
but Zin is the official grape of California, right?
Yeah. So, but over the years, I've come to really like a really fine Cabernet. And I think our terraces, Vineyard Mountain Terraces, produces some of the best Cabernet in the world. This is a Merlot from that vineyard. It's the Moon Mountain District.
What I've noticed with all the three wines I've tasted so far, they all have distinctive noses and just beautiful bouquets. Like you can really smell. Mm-hmm. The one 6-letter word we don't really talk on the podcast is Merlot. So the 5-letter word is COVID, and the 6-letter word is Merlot.
What's your favorite wine, Luke? Favorite varietal?
Probably Cab, but man, I love Merlots. I love Zins. I look at Merlots, and it seems like pretty much 25 to 50% of the conversation I have on this podcast somehow leads to Merlot. It's just...
Merlot was huge for a long time, and then when that movie came out...
Yeah, Sideways, we know.
Pinot took over, and the Merlot went by the wayside, but people still love Merlot, and it's really come back strong. We sell a lot of Merlot.
Well, I don't think... the problem is, if you go to this shop, which obviously Ledson's are not, that's good. The problem is Merlot is, look at what Merlot people sell or on a glass pour list. It's inexpensive. It's cheap. It's probably $15 or less, $20, not even $20, like $15 or less Merlot. And, when made properly, and it doesn't have to be 15 or 20, it could be 30, it could be 40. There's some beautiful Merlots. I think there's no in between in Merlot. It's either 50 and above, and that's it. That you can find good Merlot. And I don't know, maybe 40 and above. But I think a lot of people just don't understand it.
Yeah, it's got to be made right to really get the true essence of the Merlot. You can't overcrop it. People do it, but it's a totally different style. Mm-hmm. Totally different style. It'll be really fruit forward. It won't have that texture like in this wine. That right through the mid palate, you start getting a really nice texture to it that just kind of flows down. You lose all that when you overcrop it. It's more a linear wine than broad on the palate wine when you when you overcrop it.
So Moon Mountain is a very nice. Well, a lot of these places are very nice. How do you decide the different vineyard sites?
That's a very good question.
That's the second time you said that. I appreciate that. I'm gonna have a good day today. Thank you.
We're
gonna get to 3 eventually.
When I was a kid growing up, my dad would say, "We need to plant some Cabernet," and he'd say, "Wait, well, there's some space on that ranch over there in Calistoga. There's some space on that ranch, and we just plant them." We didn't think about is this the right climate or the right soil or so on and so forth.
Well, did you own the land?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, just want to make sure. It just sounded like you went to these random vineyard sites or random land and you just started planting stuff. That's what it sounded like.
Yeah, it did. Well, it wasn't quite like that. Well,
Right.
yeah, in some cases we didn't own the land. We had a lease. We'd lease it, or we used to do what's called sharecropping, which we can get into that later. But anyway, nowadays what I do is I run these weather machines and I check the weather for 2 years so I can see what the temperature, total heat degree days are, and the changes in the weather and so on and so forth. And then I dig one soil pit per acre minimal, sometimes 5 or 6. And then I take this data, I take all the weather and all the soil data, and I compare it to other sites in the world, all over. And then I look at the winemaking, the style, and what's being done, and I'll try to find a wine that's scored in the high 90s, 97, 98, 99, 100 points. Try to match the rootstocks, clones up to give me a chance to be able to make 100-point wine. So the road direction, the angle to the sun, the amount of wind that's in the vineyard, so the type of trellis system, the rootstock to match to the soils, the different clones bring these different essence and stuff out of the wine. So it's a really scientific analyzation now of planting a vineyard compared to just even 20 years ago.
Right.
And I've worked with some of the best consultants in the world and really got an education on it, some of the best. Mm-hmm. One fellow I worked with was a guy by the name of Dr. Daniel Roberts. He's a very brilliant guy. He worked for Jess Jackson one time as the head guy there. But he retired from here years ago and started his own business. And he plants vineyards in Australia, New Zealand, France, America, everywhere. So it really changes the wine in the glass when you put everything together perfectly.
Yeah, it does. Mm-hmm. So how did those grapes taste that you just randomly planted places?
I was so young at that time, I mean, we always make great wines. Right. But
It's like anything, just add sugar or salt.
Yeah.
Everything tastes better with sugar and salt.
Exactly.
Right?
You just don't get the complexity.
No.
So.
No.
Yeah.
No. Did you ever get over to Europe?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, it was after I built this house. I've spent a lot of time in Europe, and being a winemaker, you can get into most everybody's cellar. You get a hold of a winemaker wherever, France, Italy, wherever, and get a private tour and taste out of their barrels. And I've taken small groups of people with me, my long-term wine club members, and go stay over there. And oh my God! And you come back, you put on 20 pounds of weight. You go over there and
that's
just
the Cork Taylor Wine Podcast. You put on 20 pounds.
Yeah, exactly.
That's why I only come here for 3 days, because I'd be like 400 pounds after 4.
Yeah. Yeah.
What? The last question I'm going to ask you, that we're going to do a little fun stuff after this episode, is if you could trade this winery with any other winery in the world, who would you trade with?
I probably couldn't do that.
Just give me one, Steve. Just give me one. Don't make it. You're being difficult, Steve. There's got to be one. Like, what's one winery you've been to over in Europe that you're like, holy shit, this is like this is impressive, but you go over there and it's like, okay, this is phenomenal.
Oh man, I'm trying to think of which one I would say is and I've been to a lot of wineries that are not well-known, big-name wineries that are really small, family little pieces. I can't remember the name of this one that was in Italy, and I was just blown away with the quality of the wine. The grapes were grown, it looked like it was grown in a rock pile. It was so rocky, the soil, and he would have to irrigate every day. But oh my God, was that wine good? It'll come to me. It'll come to me in a minute. But if I was going to trade to do something different, not just the quality of wines were really good, but the atmosphere and that small family touching thing. The winemaker himself was a guy that met everybody. I think they probably made like 5,000 cases of wine or something. But it was this intimate Italian little in the Rocky Mountains of Italy winery. So
it was so good you don't even remember it, the name.
It'll come to me. I can phone Dave Holcomb right now. He'll do it right now because I always take him with me.
Oh,
you know, I have a group of club members who've been around for a long time, and we travel all over together.
Yeah,
we go everywhere. And
where's the next place?
Well, we've been doing a lot of these cruises. You know, we go to New Zealand, Australia, France.
Do you do like the Ledson wine cruise? Because it seems like a lot of wineries are jumping onto that. It's it's a good free vacation. You can also sell some wine.
We were doing a lot of it then, you know, with what's happening. We won't use that 5-letter word anymore, but we'll probably get started up again. And it's so much fun because, you know, we'll have a winemaker dinner, and lots of times they'll bring on a local winery in France or Spain.
That's cool.
And they'll bring them on, and they'll do their talk, and then I give my talk, and we'll have a competition with wines. And I don't know if it's just because
have you ever won?
Every time. Every time. But, you know, I mean, these people are Ledson Club members, right?
Right.
So,
right.
You know, but it's fun.
Yeah.
A lot of fun. And my daughter, she's 9 now, but she got up and sang. She was like 3 years old, and she got up and wanted to sing because she loves to talk and loves to entertain. And she, Daddy, can I sing a song to everybody?
Wonder where she gets it from.
I don't know.
Yeah. It's not a bad problem. That's a good problem to have.
Yeah. So she's great. She sang the whole song, and man, people rave about it. I'll show you a picture before we take off.
So I got a question for you, and then we'll end just quickly. Or not a question, I just got a statement. So has any wine club member ever voted for the other winery? And if they have, did you kick them out of the wine club?
Yeah, I'm sure they have. You know, I'm sure they have. But
probably Dave Holcomb.
And with my personality, I would razz them the whole rest of the trip. You know, I'd be teasing them the whole time.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, Steve, thanks so much. You're going to stick with us just for a couple more minutes. We got the sip and spit section and the 6-pack. Just remember to subscribe, rate, and review. You see how professional I am here. Also follow us on Instagram and Facebook. And if you want to support us so I can get gas, so I can get home to my family in Akron, Ohio, support our www.patreon.com/Cork and Taylor. And we'll be back next week uncorking the lighter side of wine.